In this video, I'm going to show you how to add effects plugins to a track, as well as how to set up an effects loop to use while recording. When we want to add effects while we're in the Edit window, we should go over to the Edit Window View Selector button and choose Inserts A through E. That gives us 5 potential places for inserts on this track. And a plugin is an insert. So if we want to add a plugin effect to this bass track, I can click on this first insert and choose plugin. We'll go down to harmonic and choose the fuzz wah. And that opens up this plugin window. Now we're going to talk about these plugins in other videos in this course, but I just want to show you how to actually add a plugin. And if we want to choose one of the presets, just go up to the preset button, and instead of where it says factory default, choose one of these presets. And that's all there is to it. This plugin is called an RTAS plugin, and that means that it's a real-time plugin. So as soon as you press play, that plugin is going to affect the sound of this bass track. Let's hear it. That's kind of fun. Now if we want to keep that on there but bypass the signal through the plugin, let's just hit the bypass button and you'll hear the track without the effect. I like it better with the plugin. So that's how you put a plugin onto your track, and you can actually record with that effect on the track. Now let's go over to the mix window, and I want to set up an effects loop. So I've got 2 acoustic guitar tracks here, and I want to send both of these tracks to a reverb plugin. So I'm going to set up an effects loop. So the first thing that I need to do is in the sends area of this track, I need to create a send on each of these tracks. And if you don't see the sends area on your mix window, go down to your Mix Window View Selector button and choose Sends. And there's 10 sends, A through E and F through J. We're just going to keep A through E selected here. So just click on this first send here and choose a stereo bus. I'm going to say bus 9 and 10. That is basically a stereo pipeline for sending a signal somewhere else. I'm going to put that same bus selection on the other track. Now we've got the controls for the sends right here. If you don't see these in your session, then you should go to View, Sends, and then choose Send A, which is where we have our first sends here. And that'll show just the controls for that. So we can boost up the levels here. And we can pan these. So I'm just clicking and dragging to pan. So what the sends do is make a copy of the signal that's on this track and on this track and send them on a bus. The bus is like a pipeline, and the pipeline needs to be received somewhere. So we need to create a new track, and I'm going to create one stereo aux input track, and I want to receive the signal from these sends on this aux input track. So I'm going to choose the input as the same bus 9 and 10 as what these sends are sending out on. So now I have a copy of the signal from both of these acoustic guitar tracks being sent on a bus to this input, and it's being received at this aux input track. The last step we need to do for our reverb effects loop is to actually add the effect. So we'll click on our Insert section and add our Deverb plugin. So now we have these 2 tracks. Their dry tracks are being routed to the main outputs. So those are unaffected because we don't have any plugins on them. But there's a copy of each of the tracks being sent here to the aux input and then those tracks are being affected by this deverb insert, and then those affected tracks are coming out the aux track here, going to analog 1 and 2. So we have a mix of the dry tracks and the wet tracks, or the affected tracks, both going to the main outputs on the master fader track. And let's hear what that sounds like. So you can hear the acoustic guitar tracks with and without the effect as I brought the volume up and down. You can control how much from each track goes to the effects loop here with the send controls, and then you can adjust the overall output of the effects loop right here. And you can set these up to run when you're recording a session as well as when you're mixing, and we'll talk more about this in the mixing section of the course. But now you know how to set this up if you want to have a reverb effects loop while you're recording. Now, one last thing to mention here is that if you're using a FireWire interface with Pro Tools, like a 003, and you want to record with low latency monitoring, plugins and sends on a record-enabled track are made inactive. So check this out. Watch the sends and these inserts on this track. They will be made inactive. So we'll check this off, and then if I try and record enable this, the sends become inactive, and so this is already bypassed, so we're covered for that. But that's what happens when you have low latency monitoring and you try to record these tracks. If I unrecord enable these, you'll see the sends can be active again. And we can make this unbypassed and it'll be active. So as you can see here, adding individual effects and effects loops can make your recording sessions more fun, and they might even inspire better performances. I'll cover more about using effects in the videos about mixing in this course.